All of the major space agencies, in fact, today are finding themselves confronted with this idea that we have an enormous opportunity actually in showing to society that space can do more than just provide pictures that may be useful for scientific purposes or for managing disasters and so on, but really can provide solutions that go beyond what we are offering today. So this, what we call a new concept of action, is fundamental to these ideas.
Hello SpaceWatchers, I'm Emma, the editor-in-chief of SpaceWatch.Global, and this is a new episode of Space Café Radio, your radio channel dedicated to emerging trends and live conferences in the space sector. Today we're taking you to Oslo for GLOC 2023, which is the global space conference on climate change organized by the International Astronautical Federation and the Norwegian Space Agency. In this episode, I interview Rune Floberghagen, the head of Space Application and Climate Department in the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs at ESA. This radio episode is part of a joint collaboration between SpaceWatch.Global and the Norwegian Space Agency. Our collaboration focuses on creating tangible outreach for GLOC while highlighting the commitment of the space industry to combat the climate crisis. This mini-series will explore the several approaches space is taking for climate change action, its significance for the society, as well, of course, as its practical results, challenges, and evolution into future applications. Enjoy your listening. Hello, Space Watchers. We have the pleasure to be here today with Rune Floberghagen, the Head of Science Application and Climate Department in the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs at ESA. Welcome, Rune. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
How is GLOC going for you?
GLOC is actually an excellent conference for everybody who is active in the climate arena and the climate sector. It's a melting pot, it's a networking event. And of course, we have, besides, let's say, the official program, there is a lot of side discussions going on that are going to benefit all the activities run by or participated to by everyone here. It's all great. And I must also say, it's a pleasure to be back in my own hometown, actually, for such a conference. And it's a great experience overall.
Finally, a bit of cold after so many years in Rome.
Absolutely. It's cooler here, yes.
So ESA has a new accelerator initiative, and can you give us a brief explanation of how it works and how it is different from maybe traditional ESA space program?
So the concept of an accelerator is something that was born out of the idea to try to broaden the impact of space in society and to make sure that society understands better the value of investing in space technology and space-based solutions. This was something that was agreed with the European heads of state back in 2021, and ESA has since then been working on a concept of implementing 3 such accelerators. One is dealing with the decarbonization of society, so making sure that we support the global reduction of carbon by 55% by 2030 and net zero by 2050, which is a tremendous challenge for humanity, not just for Europe. There is another accelerator which is dealing with the rapid and resilient response to crisis. It could also be climate-induced somehow. And the third one is more linked to planetary protection. These are 3 areas that have been highlighted by the heads of state as a priority for Europe to work on. I myself, I'm mainly involved in what we call the Space for a Green Future Accelerator, which is the one about decarbonization of society, finding solutions that make sure that we limit the mean global increase in temperature to acceptable levels and make sure that we continue to live on a healthy planet, basically. Now, the idea here is not that space will offer a solution to all of these problems. The idea is rather that space is an enabler or a catalyzer that can go beyond the traditional space sector and create new partnership, new ideas that can be worked on in support of all of this. So there are many ideas actually that we have which are in part based on space technology, but not only. So the key idea around an accelerator is not to have space-only derived solutions, but solutions that are in part driven by space technology. Now, I can give a practical example of such an accelerator component, just to maybe exemplify what we are talking about. we have developed a solution together with the government of Austria, creating what we call a green transition information factory for the country of Austria. These are solutions that are used to look at, for example, energy, clean energy, green energy solutions for the country that would make sure that the country makes the best possible investment in green energy infrastructure and solutions. Now, everybody knows that Austria is a beautiful country, it's green, it is forest, mountains, and it's a wealthy country, and it is also a country that lives on tourism. So that means that there are many ideas in the country about where green energy infrastructure would be built. For example, windmills that would be providing wind energy instead of fossil fuel-derived energy sources, they need to be constructed somewhere. Now, everybody wants to have green energy, but nobody wants to have what is considered to be an ugly windmill just in the backyard of a beautiful alpine village, which would like to welcome tourists to enjoy walking in the mountains or skiing. So we provide solutions here for the country of Austria, which take into account wind information, wind models that come from Earth observation, not only takes into account topographic information, slope of the hills, existing energy infrastructure that can be used to trade off exactly where windmills should be placed in order to limit visibility from populated regions, from touristic sites, for example, but also to maximize the potential of the wind energy that can be generated, and also to minimize the cost of building this infrastructure, because you realize that building such an infrastructure in faraway and remote places might be very efficient, but then you have also to spend a lot trying to transport that energy from that site into the existing power grid, for example. So all of these things are things that can be used by combining information from space together with information coming from ground sources, coming from local context, and so on. And this can be made available to the government for making decisions, but also to citizens, to make sure that they have a full access to the information the government is using to take its decisions, for example. So it's also an instrument of public debate. So this is just one example where such an accelerator can be used to support the greening of society, make economically viable and good decisions, at the same time being open, transparent, and clean in the way that information is shared and provided to everyone.
So this is very interesting because it's connected to one of the criticisms that we heard yesterday during the high-level plenaries, the fact that space seems involved with monitoring, but not really with helping to actually stop consuming fuels and transition to a green, sustainable future. So it seems like these Austrian examples that you gave me fits into this frame in which the accelerator can actually support the transition to green energy. Is this correct?
This is absolutely correct. So what we are seeing is that we are actually only at the very beginning of seeing the full potential of what space technology, Earth observation in particular, can offer. And all of the major space agencies, in fact, today are finding themselves confronted with this idea that we have an enormous opportunity actually in showing to society that space can do more than just provide pictures that may be useful for scientific purposes or for managing disasters and so on, but really can provide solutions that go beyond what we are offering today. So this, what we call a new concept of action, is fundamental to these ideas. The idea would be that this is something that is not fully owned or governed by anybody, or certainly not the European Space Agency, but it's something that is enabled and partnered into by many, such that we create a network of relationships that can make use of these technologies, the tools that are made available, and the applications that we can create, that they are being shared, that they are being made used in an open way, so without barriers in terms of intellectual property on the software and so on, but really is openly and fully shared by everybody because it is funded by public funds. Yeah? And the hope is then that through some of the examples that we create, more people are going to see that these are good solutions and that can be worked on and can be employed also in other contexts, in other places, and so forth, in other sectors. The examples that are made for wind energy is just one, but there are many linked to mobility, linked to overall greening of society, air quality. There are many practical examples that will be part of the overall challenge that we have to decarbonize society and yet maintain prosperity and quality of life.
So how about scaling?
So the scaling is, of course, the difficult part here. We know today that the scaling will not be done by the European Space Agency because we simply are not the ones that have a mandate to provide and to deliver the solution in all of these areas. We are more interested in showing the example and making sure then that the scaling is being done by those who have the complete mandate to support the greening of society. So that means other parts of the government, not necessarily the part of government that funds the public space sector and the major space agencies. So it is really, there is also a fair bit of what I would call evangelism even in all of this, because we try to show what space can deliver. We try to entice people to get in touch with us and see what we can deliver. Once we demonstrate that it works, we hope that those part of governments around Europe and the rest of the world will actually see that this is very useful, and that then the scaling will happen more or less naturally based on the example cases that we have. Clearly, this is something that we cannot do alone, but we are reaching out. We try to invite governments and also other entities in Europe in particular to dance with us, and then we will see that, or hope to see that it will work.
So what's the next step now? What's the time scale, and what do we have to do to get this accelerator going?
Okay, so we have a small team of people working on this right now in preparation of what is called the Space Summit in Europe, which will take place in Seville, in Spain, in early November. The idea is that we will present to the heads of state that will be there how far we have been able to develop this concept. Assuming that we will be convincing, the idea would then be that this is converted into a more official program. For the moment, it's just an initiative that we work on in the coming years, such that we, based on a political mandate that we hope to get in November, we can then start implementing even more actively all of these partnerships, all of these technical solutions that will then be somehow slowly fed into the public and private sector use of space technology in the future in support of decarbonization. We believe that there is a huge market here. We know that decarbonization of society is maybe the biggest challenge that mankind has ever seen. There will be trillions of euros or dollars, it doesn't really matter, needed for doing all of this. And so what we think is going to happen, and what we are quite convinced is going to happen, is that all of this will slowly pick up. I tend to use the analogy of a snowball that is running down the hill. I am from the north. I think I'm allowed to use this analogy, where a snowball in the beginning is small and maybe even tiny, and it rolls not very fast. But as more people start to see that this initiative is a good one, there will be more people joining this endeavor, these partnerships, and the snowball will grow as it rolls down the hill and will grow bigger and perhaps also roll faster. And in the end, we will be able to, if not maximize, but at least make much bigger the potential and benefit of space technology for the citizens of Europe and the world.
In your opinion, and I know this is an educated guess, between the time that you're going to get the approval, that you hopefully get the approval in Sevilla in November, and we will actually see this accelerator in action, obtaining some results, what is the time scale? We speak about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
It must be much faster than 10 years for sure. We are hoping that we have workable, at least initial solutions by no later than 2025. And if we are lucky, and if we strike the right nerve with the partnerships that we try to build, by the end of this decade, so by 2030, we hope to have already seen many of these solutions embedded in the various areas in society, both at European level, national level, maybe at regional level, or even municipal level by the end of this decade, basically. This is the type of ambition that we have, and it's actually quite a bold one, because we are talking to partners who, so far until today, in most cases, haven't really thought about using space technology. So it is not a tall order, but it's a very interesting challenge. What we've seen so far is that a lot of organizations are very interested in this. Governments are interested, and also industry is interested in being part of that. So it is also a very nice economic perspective in all of this. So we believe that this thing is really going to accelerate, and that's why we are confident that we can actually propose such a timeline, 5 to 7 years, and we should see it somehow operational. That's our plan.
So at the moment, the dialogue that you guys are having with companies, organizations, governments, is mainly focused on the European context, or you also have interest from out of Europe?
We have interest from out of Europe as well, yeah. Maybe not at the level of individual countries, but we have interest from private sector operators, for example, the financial sector all around the globe, because they have an interest in the decarbonization of society, thinking that this is going to be a huge market, yeah. Then at the public sector level, we are talking to the United Nations, for example. So it's because we know that this is not just a European problem, it's an international problem. So organizations like the United Nations Environmental Program or other parts of the UN ecosystem are definitely part of all of this, because they like to make sure that these technologies that we develop, these ideas that we are developing, will be made available to all the countries around the globe, basically. So there is definitely interest in all of this, and we are confident that it's going to pick up. The challenge that we have right now is that we are working at the beginning of all this phase, right? So we are working on the seeding, or the putting the initial seeds in the ground to make this work. It will take some time before it accelerates, but so far I must say that the feedback has been overwhelming, and people and organizations are very interested in talking about all of this. In particular, when we tell them that they don't have to adjust their government's schemes in order to work with us. We are somehow respecting everyone's own rules, regulations, and so on. And we believe this is the key to making sure that this thing will work.
Make it simple for them.
Simple for everybody, yeah. Low threshold entry, simple technology, accessible technology, and being available as a partner in defining the solutions and making sure that everybody benefits from this to the maximum potential. This is what we try to achieve.
Fantastic. Rune, thank you very much for this incredibly enlightening conversation. I'm really looking forward to hear other examples when the accelerator is going to finally to accelerate and to see this in action for actually a sustainable green future for all of us.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. Of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global. Subscribe to our newsletters, and of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Emma Gatti, Editor-in-Chief of SpaceWatch Global, your independent perspective on space. See you next time. Ciao.